out as lines close on the 6th of June. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation. Tonight, the pressure is increasing on the government to save British industry as net zero is devastating tens of thousands of North Sea jobs, as well as factories across the country. Surely it's time to abandon net zero. The government has panicked after record numbers of channel crossings were made over the weekend. We will reveal the new excuse it has mustered up that will leave you in a state of disbelief. I'll also be renewing my suggestion that Thames Water should enter bankruptcy as a £4 billion rescue deal collapses. It cannot be the taxpayer who bails out water bosses. Plus, following a feisty interview at the BBC this morning, I will be speaking to the Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister about the allegations of killing civilians in Gaza. State of the Nation starts now. I'll also be joined by my most pugnacious panel, the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and the author and journalist, Michael Crick. As always, I want to know your views, mailmog@gbnews.com, but now it's your favourite time of the day, the News Bulletin with Sophia Hill.
Jacob, thank you. Very good evening. It's just gone 8 o'clock. These are your latest headlines. Top story, the Tories have dismissed government claims that the surge in small boat crossings is due to better weather in the Channel in the first part of the year. For the first time, the government has released data on so-called red days, periods when calm seas, low winds and minimal rainfall increase the likelihood of attempts to reach the UK by boat. Between the 1st of January and the 30th of April, there were 60 of these days, according to the latest figures. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp has claimed that the government's excuse is similar to that of a lazy student claiming the dog ate my homework.
Numbers have gone up regardless of the weather in the English Channel. Look, the simple fact is this: 2025 so far has been the worst year in history for illegal crossings. There is no excuse for that. And frankly, if the Labour government's plan for border security is to pray for bad weather, then we're in big trouble. Their own Defence Secretary says they've lost control of our borders. Their plan to smash the gangs lies in tatters. They made a catastrophic mistake by cancelling the Rwanda deterrent just a few days before it started, and this is the result: total loss of border control and the largest number of illegal immigrants crossing the Channel in history.
Footage of a former police officer shouting, swearing and holding a boy's throat has been released by Dorset Police Force. A warning: the following video contains content that some viewers may find distressing.
You're under arrest! You're under arrest! Get on the floor! Get down now!
The force say they've released the footage to tackle misinformation surrounding the case. PC Lorne Castle had twice won a National Bravery Award prior to his dismissal, but a misconduct hearing has heard that the 15-year-old arrested did have a knife on him at the time, but then an independent panel found that PC Castle failed to act with, quote, self-control or professionalism. And turning to the US, the White House has called the man accused of firebombing a pro-Israel rally in Colorado an illegal alien. Mohammed Solomon, an Egyptian national who had overstayed his US visa, allegedly posed as a gardener before launching Molotov cocktails into a crowd, injuring at least 12 people, including a Holocaust survivor. According to the FBI, Solomon had been planning the attack for a year. Court filings state that he told the police he wanted to, quote, kill all Zionists, and he said he would do it again. Authorities also recovered 16 unused petrol bombs and a gasoline-filled backpack sprayer. Solomon now faces federal hate crime and attempted murder charges. Those are your latest headlines. Now, more from me in an hour, but now it's back to Jacob.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. Mount Etna has not only been busy terrifying tourists, it's been flooding the atmosphere with carbon dioxide emissions. Indeed, if you take volcanic emissions as a whole for the year, about 440 million tonnes comes out. That amounts to the entirety of the UK's annual CO2 emissions. Why do I mention this, you may wonder? Well, while we're busy deindustrialising, cutting North Sea jobs and devastating our economy with net zero policies, nature continues to take its course well beyond the control even of His Majesty's government. This government is facing pressure of volcanic proportions to save British industry from the net zero agenda. Whilst time and again we've been promised a green jobs revolution from this Labour government, a new report has revealed not only that some 58,000 North Sea oil and gas jobs will disappear, the equivalent of 200 lost every week for the next 5 years, but the offshore wind sector may only create about half of those lost. And that is, of course, with the billions in subsidies that you will have to pay for. Meanwhile, the oil and gas industry finds itself in a financial straitjacket, paying a headline tax rate of 78%. 78% on an industry that employs 200,000 people. If you're wondering why wages are low and prices are high, look no further than absurd policies like this. But it doesn't end here. Official figures show that the UK pays amongst the highest industrial energy prices in the world, higher than Germany, France, Spain, and industrial electricity 4 times more than the US. Well, the chief lobby group, Make UK, has warned that half of manufacturers now believe these high energy prices represent the biggest challenge for the future and that we are set to enter an era of rapid deindustrialisation. But we all know both of these problems are solved by one thing: abandon net zero. It's making consumer bills higher. We currently pay higher rates for gas because power stations are turned on intermittently, forcing suppliers to pay higher costs when gas is used to generate electricity. It's making taxpayers £280 a year poorer on average through green subsidies, totaling £25 billion a year. It's devastating British industry, including steel and other manufacturers, across the country because of how expensive industrial energy prices are. It's stopping new businesses expanding, and it's costing tens of thousands of jobs to those working in North Sea oil and gas-affiliated industry. The good news is, On one singular point, Red Ed Miliband is expected to scrap his heat pump targets following budget cuts. But there's much more work to be done. As ever, let me know your views. mailmog@gbnews.com. I'm very pleased now to be joined by the author of research into the replacement of North Sea oil and gas jobs, Paul Deleu, Director of RGU's Energy Transition Institute. Paul, thank you for joining me. The argument for net zero is that we will, if we get ahead, create green jobs. Why do you think that won't happen?
Yeah, I think the report we put out, Jacob, is called Striking the Balance. And what we're arguing for, you can do both. We actually can get to a cleaner future. That's going to take time. And what we're really saying in the report is, be very careful. We've got a world-class workforce, world-class supply chain. Use that workforce, use that supply chain for the time being in oil and gas before you can, the renewables agenda is ready. So basically use what we have, be successful, and then actually accelerate renewables as well. And we're not unique. If you think about other countries, Norway is doing exactly that at this point in time. The Netherlands just changed policy and actually continue to do the green agenda, but also kind of looking at potentially redeveloping new gas fields. Denmark, one of the leaders in green activities, they just redeveloped a big gas field. They're now self-sufficient in gas and exporting gas. Germany is changing and New Zealand is changing. So countries can do both make sure to maintain the existing energy sources, but also transfer to a greener and cleaner world. That's what we are in the report. Keep the jobs, keep the supply chain, and do a smart, clever transition where you actually add economic activity to the country.
And is there a risk to the North Sea in that there's a lot of legacy infrastructure there, that if you close bits of it down, that legacy infrastructure goes, and therefore there may be a point of no return, so it may become increasingly difficult to reverse these policies if it's not done relatively quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, of course, you used to be Secretary of State in this area, so you know exactly how it works. But we are going to report, do it right, big industrial strategy, follow the Norway lead on oil and gas, deliver the clean power strategy by 2030 this government set out. You're going to have 40% more jobs than we currently have in the industry. That's a massive price to go after. Unfortunately, that's not the trajectory we're on. At the moment, if you look at the investment, the investor confidence, what is happening, we're actually declining the oil and gas industry rather quickly and shutting down activities, while the wind industry particularly isn't ready. So there's nowhere for the supply chain, nowhere for the workforce to go to other than overseas opportunities. And what we're arguing is get the policy right, get the focus right, sustain oil and gas selectively for at least the remainder of this decade, build the renewables industry in parallel, and we can have a win-win for both oil and gas and renewables and getting that cleaner and greener future we all want.
All right, well, thank you very much, Paul. I'm now joined by a great friend of the programme, the founder of the climate think tank E3G, Tom Burke. Tom, thank you for coming back.
Happy to be here.
Isn't what Paul was saying quite sensible, to do this in a more measured way and not give up on the North Sea, because Norway isn't, New Zealand's bringing back its oil and gas exploration, Germany and the Netherlands and so on, and that we seem to be in just a much bigger rush than everybody else?
He's clearly not read his own report. What he says in his own report is we'll have to wait until the back end of the decade before there's enough capacity in the renewable sector to take all of the people coming out of oil and gas. That's his report. That's exactly what Ed Miliband is aiming to do. Other people are getting in the way, and you're not supporting him in doing that. But exactly what Ed Miliband has recognised is exactly what you need to do, is scale up the renewables so you can take care of those people coming up. But actually you can't,
because if you don't have new oil and gas exploration, the expertise will go in the next 5 years. You need people to have jobs now. But we're talking about losing the jobs in the next 5 years.
What Paul said, right, is if we wait, if we slow down, if we don't go as fast as we could, that's exactly what will happen. But what's stopping us going as fast as we can is partly the opposition from people like you. We can go fast enough and actually do. It's Paul who says we can do this by the end of the decade.
We are losing jobs, what he's saying, in the North Sea, and we're not gaining them in renewables.
No, he didn't say that.
That is what he's saying. He's saying that the rate of loss of jobs in the North Sea will be faster than the rate of increased employment.
And he's also
saying
saying
in 2030 that it will begin to match.
In 5 years. Yeah. That we will have done all of those jobs. So what are you saying? We should have subsidy in order to keep those jobs for 5 years?
No, because...
Well, why do you want to keep them beyond the 5 years if the renewables will replace them?
Because we know perfectly well that gas, even in your world, is a transition fuel, and it makes much more sense to have our gas than Norwegian gas.
Actually, I want to pick you up on something else you said in the other part, which is the reason we're paying, and British industry is paying far more for its electricity than it needs to do, is because we have designed the market so that the price of gas determines the price that we pay for all those cheaper resources from renewables.
But if we were extracting our own gas and using fracking, we are sitting on trillions of cubic feet of gas. The price of gas would be lower. And what we have done is we are pouring billions of pounds.
You shock me.
Oh, no, I don't know why I do.
Because you're a believer in market forces.
That's right.
Yes. Well, we are not going to produce gas in this country and not try to sell it on the price in global markets. So we can't produce our own gas and sell it at our own price.
As you know perfectly well, there isn't a global market for gas. It's not like oil. There is a succession of global prices.
You're exactly right. But we sell our gas at a price that's available to the regional market, and not at what we want it to be sold at.
As you know perfectly well, supply and demand means that if you increase the supply and demand remains steady, the price falls. If we were selling more gas onto the market, the European market price would fall.
Well, if we were Saudi Arabia, that would be true. But we're not. We're the best one in the world. We're not Saudi Arabia.
We have enormous quantities of gas.
Anyway, Jacob, if we were to try and develop fracking, which I don't think is a sensible idea anyway, but were we to try and do it, it won't help you with the problem you've raised about what you do with the jobs we're going to lose in the next 5 years. And I'm in favour of it.
Because they would come into development now, and there's quite a lot of evidence that there's a lot of gas still under the North Sea that you can get to from disused coal mines onshore. So there are opportunities to extract more gas, but the subsidies are huge. Can you possibly defend the £6 billion subsidy we're paying to Drax?
To Drax?
To Drax.
I wouldn't defend the subsidy we're paying to Drax. No, but that's
this is all part of the net zero approach.
That's a part.
It is a part. It's quite an important one.
I mean, that's practically not a policy you could name. That doesn't have a bit in it that's bad.
But a moment ago you were saying that the reason price rise is all because of gas. It's actually because of things like the subsidies to Drax, which add hundreds of pounds to people's bills, because this feeds through to individual consumers and businesses. So it's a generally crazy policy, all driven by net zero.
The levies for net zero make a very small addition to people's bills. Nothing like the addition to people's bills made because we so badly designed the market that the price of gas means people pay for their renewable electricity at the price determined by the price of gas, which is not determined by us.
But you know perfectly well, there's a report out this year that says £25 billion of subsidies that we're paying each year for renewables. Renewables increase the price. And you know renewables increase the price because for every kilowatt hour of wind you're getting, you've got to have gas on standby. And that, factored into the price, makes renewables very expensive.
Sorry, you don't have to set the market price for gas at the marginal rate.
No, but you have to...
That's a capital cost.
You have to have the gas.
Having the gas available is a good idea. I'm not against having the gas.
Okay.
Having the gas available, but using it...
But if you ran the gas full tilt and didn't worry about the renewables, your price would be much lower. Because you're only running the gas at a low capacity utilisation because you're trying to use renewables, you put up the price of electricity.
Well, if you design your electricity market incorrectly, that's exactly what you do. But we've currently got a whole process going on to redesign the electricity market.
There is no way of designing your market that doesn't make the marginal additional supply expensive if you have unreliable renewables. This is inevitable. This is a consequence of renewables.
They're not unreliable. They're not unreliable.
They're unreliable.
No, I'm sorry. They're very predictable. You know exactly when you're likely to get a period of low emissions. Demand is unreliable in the sense you're talking about. Demand between 11 o'clock at night and 5 o'clock in the morning, we have to switch off lots of things.
Demand is very predictable according to temperatures.
But
supply is not, because you have periods of the year. It's not the same period of the year every year.
I know.
when you don't have the wind and you don't have the sun.
First
you
of
have
all,
heavy cloud cover.
we now know, people managing the grid know how to predict that. Furthermore, AI, and I'm sure you're in favour of us investing a lot more in AI, will make it even cheaper to run that system.
I know the GB News weather forecast is brilliant, but I'm not sure we know all that much. But thank you as always to Tom. In a moment, we will reveal the new excuse the Labour government has mustered up in response to the record levels of channel crossings, and they'll leave you in a state of disbelief.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Cass Review, which was last March, April, a very accomplished paediatrician, Baroness Cass, who effectively said, we've got to stop giving children who think they might be trans, rushing them into treatment, avoiding them having pills that can change their body. And now it seems the NHS is still treating nursery-age children. Nursery age. These are toddlers who believe they're transgender. Now, they're not giving them any drugs, but the mere idea, why are mum and dad even going along with it?
It's things like a boy that wants to wear dresses and play with dolls.
Let him.
It's things like a girl who wants to kick a football or maybe have her hair short. And the problem is, I think the parents are the ones behind this, obviously. You either say, this is normal, and children play around with gender roles as they have done since the beginning of time. You don't march them off to the doctor and get their heads looked at by a psychiatrist. And why are they doing it? Well, because they are reading that it's normal now, they're confused, they lack confidence as parents to say no.
Well, apparently, the Health Service had set a minimum age of 7 for children to be seen by specialist gender clinics. I think that's too young, frankly.
Unbelievable.
7, far too young. Claiming anything else less was just too young. But that limit's now been removed after the proposal was put up to consultation. And you know why? Because the wretched trans lobby have lobbied and put pressure on the NHS. So you've now got 3-year-olds being talked to about their gender. For God's sake, what are we doing to our children?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. I'm still Jacob Rees-Mogg, and as we discussed yesterday, despite Labour's smash the gang strategy, we have reached yet another daily record for the year in migrant crossings, with nearly 1,200 on Saturday. But instead of bowing their heads in shame, ministers have engaged in a mighty act of spin and attempted to blame the weather for the crossings. If this is really the line the government wants to take, then we can expect another record-breaking year. Well, my panel is with me. The most pugnacious one, the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and the author and journalist, Michael Crick. It's no good blaming the weather when the government's useless, is it?
Well, I don't think anybody's saying the weather is the only factor. I mean, clearly the weather is a factor in that we see year after year hardly anybody crosses in the winter months of December, January, February, and then in the spring it goes up, and in high summer it's at its highest. Now, undoubtedly, the figures this year are higher than previous years, and that is of concern. But, I mean, maybe they've over-egged it. Maybe they should have stressed other factors. As to mocking the smash the gangs philosophy, well, it was a ridiculous slogan, just as ridiculous as stop the boats. But, the weather thing, I'm not sure it's a huge issue.
But isn't it rather a good advert for the English Tourist Board? Come over, the weather's lovely. I mean,
Well, we have had a remarkable spring. You know, sunnier than ever, unfortunately drier than ever, which is not good news to the farmers of Somerset or indeed anywhere else. But
well, there's been a bit of rain recently. But yeah. I mean, Kelvin, this is just getting silly. That they have no strategy. They don't know what to do. Blaming the weather is desperate.
That's the reality of it all. That we, by the way, Labour are as bad as the Tories. This is not a political issue, and there is nobody on either of the main parties offering a solution. Now, you may not agree with Nigel Farage's solution, which is basically we will turn them back. In which case, we can expect come to very close to warfare with France. You know, I don't know whether rockets will be fired, but something will happen of a dramatic nature. But something will be solved out of that. Quite right now, neither Kemi, nor Boris, nor Rishi, nor, as it turns out to be, Starmer, has an answer to an issue which is massively important to the public. Why do you think Nigel Farage is doing so well? What will happen if, by some miracle, this all goes to nothing, right? There's a deal with France and suddenly none of this happens again. I suspect that Nigel will remain popular, but he may not be 32% popular.
But France is laughing at us, isn't it?
It is.
It's taking all our money. Did you read today about the gendarmes can't get their feet wet because they don't have the authority to do it?
That is true. Well, they say that they can't, that their guns will then become damaged if they go in the water. Look, that they do have waders. There is a way around it. They don't want to do it. And actually, if this was the other way round, right, I perhaps wouldn't want to do it, i.e. because all I'm saying is I'm going to have 50,000 a year migrants heading here. This is what France should do. They should push the problem to the next border and push it back and push it back.
Well, they do have rather a lot of borders with quite a few different countries. France.
But they're European. Coming in the same way, aren't they? They're not coming from Germany.
Anyway, go on. Yeah.
The French problem is it's all been coming. Not from Germany, but it's come from Spain and Italy, primarily.
Primarily, yeah. So that's right. But I sort of agree with you, Kelvin, that I'm sceptical that Keir Starmer is going to make a huge difference. But he's only been in office 10 months. He's trying lots of different things, and frankly, the figures are likely to go up anyway. There may be an element of people fearing that Labour are going to take measures and they better get there quick. Perhaps not. And as I say, I've long argued on this programme that over time the figures are likely to go up, particularly if we don't do something about global warming.
Starmer is never going to do anything about it. Why? Because he doesn't believe that there should be a change in ECHR in a manner, and he doesn't believe in taking the French on. Well, once you have those two stanchions taken away, we have nothing left. I'm afraid we are done for the next 4 years.
There are signs that things are changing on that even Labour and indeed other countries in Europe.
It's in his interest. Why doesn't he just say, it's in my political interest, I am going to be thrown out with the same majority out as I got thrown in? Why doesn't he say to himself, I am going to do something about this?
I also have to say that I'm not sure that if Nigel Farage came to power tomorrow, there would be much difference either.
I think there would be.
Look what Trump has done. Trump has got legal crossings down by over 80%. Why? Because he's said that he is determined to do it, and he's policed the border, and he's turned people back.
There's been some gross injustices in there, in what he's done there.
I'm answering your challenge.
Yes.
Could Nigel do it? And yes, he could. Yes, it requires really tough action. It requires ignoring the Human Rights Convention, and it requires saying anybody who is here who is not a British national is at risk of being deported. If you're a British citizen, you're safe.
Actually, Nigel Farage takes a more moderate line on this, of course, than Rupert Lowe does, who advocates the mass deportations,
which I'm not in favour. I don't support.
Which is more like what Trump is doing. You don't support them. Why? Because you feel like...
I think once people are British citizens, they are absolutely right to be here, and I think Rupert has offered money for people to go home, and I'm against that very firmly.
Right, but I mean, I think Nigel Farage's view also is that if you start doing deportations on a large scale, it becomes unmanageable, and it...
Well, I think you actually start with deporting people who have just arrived, because that then becomes a deterrent and they stop coming. That's the really big part of the problem.
The trouble is that some of these people are deserving cases. You know, they are from horrendous places like Afghanistan and Somalia and Sudan.
But they've got to
and
say...
if you were a young
why
man,
should we have to look
you
at
were a young man in one of those places, you'd be on one of these small boats coming to Britain.
I get that. I get their ambition is not something that one should be hostile to. It's simply that we can't take them. On that note, we're going to have to go away and thank my panel, because shortly I will be revealing the solution to Thames Water's woes, and it doesn't involve using taxpayers' money.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The recent heat wave is easing across parts of Spain and Portugal, but plenty of severe thunderstorms remain across northern parts of Europe. But across the Canary Islands, Spain, Portugal, mostly settled, a little cloudy at times, but we could see some quite severe thunderstorms across southern France, southern Germany, northern parts of Italy. This could bring frequent lightning, hail and also some strong winds. But elsewhere across the central and eastern parts of the Mediterranean, plenty of sunshine and temperatures are on the up through the week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good evening, I'm here with your GB News weather coming to you from the Met Office. It is still going to stay quite blustery with some further showers across northern parts overnight, and I think many of us will notice that it is a fair bit fresher than recent nights as well. It's all due to low pressure to the north of us, keeping those blustery winds, especially, like I said, towards the north, and we do have fresher air than of late across us too. Like I said, the showers across northern parts continuing through the night. They could merge into some longer spells of rain for Scotland and Northern Ireland in particular. Elsewhere, and apart from a few showers across western parts of England and Wales, it's looking largely dry, and there will be some clear skies around. The clear skies combined with that fresher air I mentioned, meaning that it is going to turn a little bit cooler than it has done through some recent nights. Nonetheless, we're not expecting a frost or anything, of course not. It's early June, but it is going to be a cool start to the day, a bright one for many across England and Wales. Just a few showers here and there towards the west. More showers as we head further north, these continuing through the night and continuing as we go through Wednesday, particularly across western parts of Scotland and much of Northern Ireland. Eastern Scotland towards Aberdeenshire, perhaps actually starting the day on a largely dry note. But as we go through the day, the showers generally are going to become a bit more widespread. There could be some heavy ones, even the odd rumble of thunder can't be ruled out. And all the time, across northern parts in particular, some blustery winds, slightly lighter winds further south, and actually across some central eastern parts, largely avoiding the showers, so staying generally dry. Temperatures on paper are going to be down a few degrees compared to recent days, but slightly lighter winds than we've had today. Then as we go through into Thursday, there's a swathe of wet weather pushing its way across much of England and Wales. That clears away towards the east, with showers following in behind, and a few showers across Scotland and Northern Ireland too, but perhaps fewer than we're expecting through tomorrow. Otherwise, through the end of the week and into the weekend, well, more showers to come for many of us. Bye-bye.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. The US private equity firm KKR has withdrawn from a planned £4 billion rescue deal for Thames Water, the UK's largest water authority. This collapse intensifies concerns about the company's future. It's burdened with nearly £20 billion of debt. But whether it can find another deal or not, it's crucial we let Thames Water fail. Do not use taxpayers' money, and this is a deliberate pun, to bail it out. Well, my pugnacious panel is still with me, Kelvin McKenzie and Michael Crick. Kelvin, the market just takes its normal course. Thames goes bust, the assets get sold off, they get sold off at discount, debt owners take a haircut, and the company is probably capitalised at less, and water prices should actually go down.
The current shareholders will lose an absolute fortune, and it will serve them right. Right, lots of companies get themselves into financial trouble, and this one knew exactly what they were up to. They were taking the money out in dividends and shoveling debt into the company. That is a well-known game in capitalism. When it comes to water, the fact that the regulator sat there and watched all this going on or didn't understand it, the regulator is a complete idiot, as this report this morning has now indicated. And but however, I do not want, and neither does the government want, to nationalise the water companies. We haven't got the money to do it properly.
Well, the government's going to have to take charge, surely. Otherwise, the danger is that it will be sold off in bits. You know,
well, it's very hard to sell off in bits because you've got a new sewer that they've built. You can't sell a third of a sewer. You've got to sell the whole.
I suppose you can sell off the sewers and sell off the water suppliers separately. But
you could. But actually, where I am in Somerset, Bristol Water does the supply of water, and Wessex Water does the wastewater. So this is done in other places. That's not impossible.
I mean, the other thing you could do is renationalise it, and then, you know, sometime down the road, when things are sorted out, you know, give all the customers shares.
Okay. But if you renationalise it, all the debt then goes on to the government's balance sheet, and considering where we currently are in the national debt, you really want another...
Could you not pass a bill just saying, right, well, that's just tough on the poor old creditors?
You can't write it down to zero. I mean, they'd lose in human rights action for taking property. Much as I don't like the...
Well, you see, you're much more expert in these things than I am. But you've got to make sure, though, that there is order in whatever transition there is.
But that's what liquidators routinely do, because they have a job to do to sell it off as a going concern if they possibly can. And what you do, I think, is... you make the current investors lose money. The pricing is based on return of capital. The capital value of Thames Water goes down, and therefore the prices that are based on the return of capital go down. Bingo. And everyone's better off, other than the investors. And they knew they were taking a risk. In a country in which the tax burden is at its highest since the Second World War, the one thing the public service broadcaster ought not to be doing is suggesting increasing the licence fee. Unfortunately, that is exactly what Director General Tim Davey has done. I would, in fact, it's time to scrap the licence fee model altogether. Well, my panel is here. Kelvin, didn't you want to propose that the BBC should be mutualised and everyone should have a share in it?
Well, either a share or now, and especially now we've got streaming. For instance, I would pay for Radio 4 because I enjoy being very annoyed, getting my blood pressure up on the Today programme every morning, and I have been doing it for 40-odd years, and I enjoy that. Right, it tells me enough about what I want to know. Very gloomy. Turn it off. Get going with my day. What I don't want to do is to be playing for Escape to the Country in the afternoon and various other shows which have got cheaper and cheaper. They can't compete with the streamers. Can I just say an advert for Netflix? Last night, there is American Manhunt, Osama bin Laden. It is a stunning piece of documentary making. They pay $1 million an hour for that stuff. The BBC probably pay about 120 an hour. They can't compete. The world has moved on. We don't want to pay any more money.
Isn't this the problem? You see, I think the licence fee has been a safety blanket for the BBC that has suffocated it. It lost sporting rights when Sky came in. It's now losing drama to Netflix. It will be losing documentaries too. All it's got left really is news. And actually, it had a wonderful product that it could have sold if it had been commercial, but because of the licence fee, it never bothered.
Well, I think you're a bit too gloomy about the BBC's output. There is a lot of very good output in all of those genres, and there is certainly superb journalism, and I'd be very concerned. People say, oh, I never watch the BBC, I never listen to the BBC. Actually, in reality, there must be hardly anybody who doesn't take advantage of BBC output. And it is a brilliant broadcasting company compared, say, with the United States, where there is nothing to match the BBC. And it's one of the great things about this country. And I would have thought as a Conservative, well, you're both Conservatives, you would believe in preserving a lot of that.
But I think it would preserve it if it were a free market company rather than a licence fee company. The licence fee limits
the danger is once it becomes a free market company, you are much more driven by ratings, and then you go down market in the way that... sorry?
But they're driven by ratings anyway.
Well, to a degree they are, but you're even more driven by ratings.
Netflix is driven by ratings. It's probably producing the finest television the world has ever seen. So, look, BBC, we just stream it, and you pay for what you want, OK? They actually would... it wouldn't be universal, because actually, at the moment, how many of us are forced to pay for it? Say 20-odd million, right? That number would fall to about 4 million. I mean, nobody is going to pay for something. The idea that I am fined or potentially go to jail because I won't pay to watch state television is preposterous.
Well, you don't go to jail for not paying the licence.
You work for Channel 4. You didn't face that model, and you were a state broadcaster.
I worked for BBC half my career as well, half my television career. And let me stress, nobody goes to jail for not paying the licence. They go to jail for not paying the fine they had for not paying the licence, which is a bit different. There are alternative models. I mean, we've got to work out something.
Models.
Models, yes, models as well. Models. For instance, you have subscription combined with... maybe you have an idea that your former colleague Damien Green came up with many years ago. You have a public service broadcasting fund which funds good outputs such as news or journalism on whatever channel it's on. So it would, ITV might get some, Channel 4 might get Channel 5, whatever. So there are alternatives, but we've got to get a move on with this because the number of people paying the licence fee is going down, and the number of BBC staff is rapidly going down.
I wish nobody paid it.
If it's a public service body, I think I've got the voice to be the public service announcer. So, in that tone, thank you to my panel. In a moment, I will be speaking to the Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister after her chaotic interview on the BBC this morning and letting her say what the BBC wouldn't.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. This morning on BBC Radio 4, a row unfolded between a BBC journalist and the Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister regarding claims from the Hamas-run Health Ministry in Gaza that the IDF had killed 27 civilians at a Gaza aid centre.
I suggest you be accurate about it and not try to inflate or actually speak, straight away what Hamas is actually reporting.
Israel
Wait
says,
until things are actually being investigated.
Please, Israel
Did
says,
Israel confirm
please,
anyone died?
Israel,
Did anyone?
Please,
Did Israel
you have to let me.
anyone died
You have
by
to
the
let me
IDF?
speak.
No.
You have to let me speak.
Well,
Israel's,
I am, but please be accurate.
Earlier today, I spoke to Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister Sharon Haskell to let her share her full side of the story. What was going on with the BBC? You could hardly get a word in edgeways.
Yeah, well, I think it's part of the problem with mainstream media when they really rush to report many statements that Hamas is putting out. It doesn't just damage their integrity, but it also don't give the opportunity to actually verify things. And we've seen how many mistakes the BBC have actually committed. In the Arabic channel, more than 80 mistakes were done where they had to apologize for. The film, where they spent more than £500,000 on a film that is based on Hamas's children. I think that there's a major problem when they take the word of a terrorist organization as a given fact instead of trying to verify it. And, in the last few days, we've been operating to facilitate more humanitarian aid to Palestinians. The Americans have gone through a new channel that is bypassing Hamas, and Hamas is very angry about it. They profited from the humanitarian aid. They paid their terrorists through the humanitarian aid. They collected the humanitarian aid. And so right now they are creating so many obstacles in trying to derail the distribution of humanitarian aid through the Gaza Humanitarian Fund. And they're spreading so many lies as well. And the international media is taking it as a given fact. So when I say, I'll just say one last thing, if that's okay. They put me live literally 2 minutes after a statement was pulled out, and they expect me to speculate or to have been already briefed about it. And they can't expect that. I mean, it takes time to verify things in depth to understand what had happened. This is a war zone.
All right. So what did that statement say? Because the issue was whether yesterday or today the IDF had shot people who were queuing for aid. What are the facts in relation to that? And what did the IDF statement say?
So what the media was very quick to publish yesterday, that they were being shot inside the humanitarian zone distribution, which wasn't correct. Now, we've dealt with a few days of propaganda to try and prevent that. But this morning, some of the people, and I have to say it was a kilometer away. Now, when we talk about the Gaza Strip, at certain points, it's only 6 kilometers wide. So in terms of Gaza, that's very far away from the actual center of distribution. So a kilometer away, there were a few people who deviated from the route. They were shot, warning shots in the air to warn them not to advance this route. As we know, Hamas sometimes uses that to try and push the red lines to try and advance towards our soldiers, our troops. And you need to remember, this entire area is a war zone, is a front line. They didn't listen and they continue. And when they were in a position where it actually endangered our troop, they were shooting towards them. Now, the IDF said it's verifying whether they were injured, whether there were any casualties as well. I suggest instead of inflating numbers, as we've seen from an institution in the UK who have proven in research that Hamas almost constantly is inflating numbers, to wait for the actual accuracy of the information where we investigate everything. And I have to say just one.
Well, let me ask this question, because too many people have been killed. And it doesn't matter whether there's good reason or bad reason. Too many people have been killed, many of whom have been innocent. And however hard you try not to kill innocent people, that has happened. What can Israel do to reduce the numbers who are being killed? And how does it see a route through to peace?
Well, it's very simple. There could have been a ceasefire yesterday. There could have been a ceasefire today. There could have been a ceasefire 2 months ago. Witkoff put a proposal for a ceasefire constantly throughout the last couple of months. Israel said yes 2 months ago. Israel said yes a month ago. Israel said yes yesterday and even today. The problem is that Hamas refuses to accept the deal. I can quote you even Witkoff, who said it's absolutely unacceptable where Hamas is actually taking them a few steps backward. This is not my word, but this is U.S. envoy Witkoff words. So it's very important to understand that it's not about Israel's willing. It's about Hamas's refusal to accept a deal, a ceasefire deal. We want back our hostages. Our goal.
Is Israel being too ruthless? Is it losing support because it is going on killing people, and that its supporters, both at home and abroad, are getting uneasy about that?
You tell me, is there a war where there's no casualties? Is there a war when, there isn't civilian casualties? It's very unfortunate. It's heartbreaking. If anyone tried to convince me that a war is a cruel thing, it's an ugly thing, I know that. Every single Israeli know that. The fact is that if you ask any Israeli, they wish it was the 6th of October and this war wasn't declared on Israel by Hamas. We didn't choose it. It was forced on us. And I just one more word about it, because
time is against us. I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm beginning to sound like the BBC. But Sharon Haskell, Deputy Foreign Minister, thank you so much for joining me. And now the White House has got involved, giving its views on the BBC.
We don't take the word of Hamas with total truth. We like to look into it when they speak, unlike the BBC, who had multiple headlines. They wrote, Israeli tank kills 26, Israeli tank kills 21, Israeli gunfire kills 31, Red Cross says 21 people were killed in an aid incident, and then, oh wait, they had to correct and take down their entire story, saying we reviewed the footage and couldn't find any evidence of anything. Oh. Okay, so we're going to look into reports before we confirm them from this podium or before we take action, and I suggest that journalists who actually care about truth do the same.
Well, for reaction now, my panel's still with me, Kelvin McKenzie and Michael Crick. Michael, it is true that the BBC has had to apologise and take down 80 false bits of information that it put up on its Arabic network. Well, this is quite serious, isn't it?
Look, this has been going on now for nearly 2 years, this conflict. It's not surprising that the BBC, or indeed any news organisation, has made mistakes in that time, given the fact that none of us can report from Gaza. And you should have been asking that lady, if you don't mind me saying, you should have been asking why that is. And wouldn't we be more accurate if we were allowed to be there? And you should also have been asking her, I'm afraid, as Anna Foster did this morning in a brilliant interview, and she's quickly emerging as a fantastic presenter, why, and the lady, Sharon, I've forgotten her surname, refused to answer as to why whether they would welcome an independent inquiry. I mean, two other points I'd make. I don't believe any spokesman for the Israeli government these days, after what happened 2 months ago with that convoy of where 14, or was it 15, aid workers and doctors were killed, and they kept changing their story. Nor do I believe a White House for a president who believes that he was robbed in 2020.
But the BBC a week ago had a UN spokesman on who said 14,000 babies were about to die. This was completely untrue.
Well, it's the
And he was
duty of any
representing the
broadcaster.
UN.
It's the duty of any broadcaster.
So it's not all one-sided. And
well, it's the duty of any... And the BBC regularly interviews people from Israel, even though they might be telling lies. And it tries to get balance. But I mean, how many times do you interview Palestinians on this programme?
Hold on, but UN spokesmen are meant to be impartial. They're not meant to be taking sides.
Yes.
So as you're a neutral listener, you should think a UN spokesman on the BBC will be telling you facts. And this man was rabbiting on about a terrible idea of 14,000 babies about to die, which was completely untrue.
Well, in that case...
So the BBC was whipping up.
Well, at the time, maybe that was a credible claim. It may not be so now. And if he appears on... Well, I didn't see the interview. If he appears on the programme again, he should be held up... He should be challenged for it.
One of the problems about this is that the argument that never gets made, which doesn't get made very often, but the argument that comes out from Israel is actually Hamas is a collection, tens of thousands of Osama bin Ladens. They are massive Islamists. This is Al-Qaeda running the country. So when you have on one side saying this, on one side the Democrats saying that, and the Islamists are saying that, I have no doubt in my mind that it is the Democrats who are more likely to tell the truth
that's a naive
than the
view of the world.
Islamists. Right? But that's because I do not want my country, I do not want my world, I do not want Israel to be run by Islamists. This is the problem. That argument doesn't get paid. They make it look as though there are two democratic countries fighting each other. Look, I thought that lady made some good points. I'm sure that if you had the other side, you would find equally good points. And I think that is the only way these debates can be taken. And I don't believe it is the job of broadcasters to end up having a full-scale row because something gets lost in
the row
that.
was more engineered by the foreign minister, actually. Anna Foster was very patient with her, as you heard, actually, on the clip that you ran.
But it never works. It never works when a row breaks out like that on television.
No, but if you're just trying to ask a question and every time you even start asking the question, the subject interrupts, what do you do? Now, in terms of what you say, I used to think like that. I used to say Israel is the only democratic country in the Middle East. It's the only place where people, gay people are not persecuted or murdered. The only place where you have Western human rights. But I no longer have faith in Israel or its government. And I think there are a lot of people who feel the same way, many of them Jewish.
You do believe that Hamas has a correct argument to make? Why don't they release the damn hostages? Why don't they release the hostages?
We're beginning to sound like the Today programme too much, and we've got to go to Patrick Christie's. Patrick, what is on your batting order this evening, other than, of course, the Somerset weather?
Well, indeed, tremendous show, by the way, Jacob. Thank you very much. I've got an exclusive for you on Anjem Choudhury, Britain's most notorious hate cleric. Robert Jemrick joins me live. He's going to be discussing Lord Hermer, amongst other things. We're going to take you live to Portugal for the very latest on the latest search for Madeleine McCann. MI6 have hoisted the gay pride flag above their headquarters. Well, I'll tell you what, I reckon that Vladimir Putin is absolutely bricking it after seeing that. All of that and much more, 9 to 11 p.m, of course, after your weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, I'm here with your GB News weather coming to you from the Met Office. It is still going to stay quite blustery with some further showers across northern parts overnight, and I think many of us will notice that it is a fair bit fresher than recent nights as well. It's all due to low pressure to the north of us, keeping those blustery winds, especially, like I said, towards the north, and we do have fresher air than of late across us too. Like I said, the showers across northern parts continuing through the night. They could merge into some longer spells of rain for Scotland and Northern Ireland in particular. Elsewhere, and apart from a few showers across western parts of England and Wales, it's looking largely dry, and there will be some clear skies around. The clear skies combined with that fresher air I mentioned, meaning that it is going to turn a